Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and specifically welcome to what has been my best game of the year so far, and it is in the best tier 9 tank. Oh no it isn't, it's in the STRV K. I always love it when this happens, when some of my best games happen in vehicles that no one really even thinks about. This is one of only 3 tier 9 premium vehicles in World of Tanks. Don't really see too many of them on the battlefield. You think if it was the original tier 9 premium that everybody would be playing it, really. That doesn't just seem to be the case. I think that's good. I think it's excellent that Wargaming haven't put tier 9 premium tanks in a completely overpowered fashion. It's just not so good when they don't at least give them fairly novel gameplay, which can still make them exciting without necessarily making them overpowered. So what you're going to see here at the start of this game is just how flexible sometimes you have to be in World of Tanks. When I'm playing this tank, this is the hull of a Kranvang with the turret of a Centurion 7-1. It's pretty much got the same kind of gun as a Centurion 7-1 as well. I feel that this vehicle is best played against medium tanks, where its hull armor is better than the Centurion, its turret is the same, and its gun is the same, and while it does have less mobility than the Centurion, I kind of feel like it does well when it doesn't have to rely on that hull armor. And so I wanted to make my way into the middle of the map. However, I saw an E75 who wanted, by the looks of it, to go down the 7 line as if they were playing the tutorial of World of Tanks. And this made me realize that if I completely abandon the western flank, and so does the E75, it's probably not going to work out very well for my team. So I decide that it wasn't too late to leave the center and to be able to instead go and fight down the classic heavy flank, even though I'm not really a classic heavy tank. And you've really got to be flexible like that in World of Tanks. You can't tell your team where to go, but what you can do is adapt to where some of the more important vehicles on your team are going to either support them or to realize that it might be leaving holes in your defense down another flank. And unfortunately, while the M6A whatever had to, I guess, just drive out in front of me to get that extra shot in, maybe he wanted to try to get the side of the Peregrine, we don't quite manage to finish off the shell. Or finish off the tank with our shell. But I guess what goes around comes around. We actually managed to pick up a kill on a Borask there. And honestly, that vehicle behind me was going to die anyway. So to have that opportunity to pick off one of the most sneaky vehicles on the enemy team with a awesome double barrel punch, I think that's actually a pretty good trade for me there. So what I'm trying to highlight here, once again, is that you can't tell your team where to go, but you can adapt, and make sure you do that in all of your games. Sometimes you're going to feel a little bit frustrated, or you're going to feel tired, or you're going to feel tilt, and I'm not saying that you should be doing it in all of your games. And another thing that's important as well is to not double guess yourself, and that's a bit of a disappointment there that we don't manage to quite get a shell into the Borsig. But as I was saying, don't double guess yourself. One of the worst things that I see players do that isn't adapting to the situation is to never actually to never commit to a scenario as well, and to never have that conviction and to go through with what they think is right. Also, another thing that you always want to make sure that you're doing is if your base is in jeopardy, you have to rely on yourself to be able to get back. And luckily it looks like I've reacted just a little bit quicker than all of the vehicles that were behind me that were finishing off an E75. So we don't have long, really. I can't really go down underneath their gun line, so I'm going to have to try and make best of the situation that I find myself in. And that is to hopefully use this rock, and then hopefully be able to get a shot into the guard here, but oh dear, the shell goes wide. But luckily I get 337 assistance there, which has allowed, I guess, the T-34-3 or maybe the mutant behind me to get the interrupting instead. And now I can go after the 257. Putting them down to 381 hit points with a low roll, meaning that I've got pretty much a 50-50 chance to be able to finish them off with my subsequent shot. Unfortunately, it goes into the tracks. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not aiming at the side of this vehicle, it's because it has very, very, very well-angled side armor. So you want to aim at the front of the hull in this specific example. I low roll again, leaving the vehicle on a single hit point, and now I've got to fall back for the Kampfpanzer. I guess I could load an HE shell here for the 257, but I think it's more important to interrupt the tank that has all of the base cap points, and that is the guard, and we managed to get ourselves 40 base defense points there. So once again, hopefully you are more aware than anyone else on your team of how the battle is going, and so take that responsibility. if you can, and the great players do, to be able to get back to make those game-winning plays, or at least to even give us a chance of being able to get back into this one. As we finish off the guard, we must have got at least 100 base defense points there. And we can see that this vehicle, when it actually tilts its hull slightly upwards, as I'm doing here, and uses its turret, it's not half bad. Look, this gun isn't going to win any prizes. 0.34 accuracy, 1950 DPM, unimpressive alpha damage for a tier 9 heavy tank, but not bad for a tier 9 medium tank at 319. But it just seems to get the job done in this scenario. And I love setting this thing up with vents, a gun rammer, and a turbo. The turbo, I think, is one of the best modules on this vehicle for me and my playstyle, because it actually allows me to be responsive and to kind of turn this thing into more of a medium tank. If you don't, you will not be able to adapt to the situation and to react and to be able to make those changes. But let me also clarify that this vehicle's gun handling with 2.5 seconds aim time, 0.19 dispersion when moving and turning the tank, and 0.15 when turning the turret. Yeah, if you don't take vertical stabilizers on this vehicle, you are going to have awful gun handling, and you're going to have to be over-aiming, or you're going to have to just be in one of those kind of previous situations that you saw me in when we're stationary and we're sniping at targets that aren't moving in front of us. Apart from that ELC even 90, and that was a real feels-good shot there to lock down the last vision of the enemy team. Alright, so now we find ourselves in a 4 versus 5 scenario, but unfortunately the Cobra has got forwards, and the Kampfpanzer as well. And while I wanted to try and see if I could spot any of the enemy moving through the middle of the map, there was a great ambush by the enemy's top tier medium tanks, shutting down the Mutant, now shutting down the Tiger, and I realize with the Cobra reloading, I have to go after this Kampfpanzer here. I asked the Tiger 2 to help me out. He seems to be thinking about the Cobra, not realizing that it's reloading. But I know that this Kampfpanzer wants to shoot this Tiger 2. So I'm going to lock them in place, and then I'm going to go get up in their face. He clearly uses the repair kit there, which I didn't expect he still had in that scenario, to then finish off the Tiger. And then QuickyBaby finds himself in a 1 versus 5 scenario, gunning for the one that everybody wants, the Kolobanov's medal. I've got about maybe 10 seconds now before the Cobra reloads, or maybe I don't. Luckily, we finish off the reward tier 9 German medium tank, and now this Cobra, which is a mobile vehicle, I want to pressure. I want to get up in the face of this British medium tank and make it awkward. They've got about 268 millimeters of pen with their heat. Now I'm raising my gun to try and get in the way. You can actually absorb all of the heat rounds if you can put your gun in the way of the enemy vehicle. But then I have to point my gun downwards to still be able to damage the Cobra. Now bounces their last shot off me, and just like that we've changed our 1 versus 5 into a 1 versus 2 because the SU-130PM drowns themselves on the enemy team. The 50 TP catches me out. I don't really want to lose another 440 hit points, hoping that they're going to ricochet this shell. Maybe I could have reloaded an HE shell, but we actually find a shot into the lower plate of the 50 TP, but unfortunately the Borsig manages to get a shot into our side. Now we've also got a damaged gun in this scenario, which means that we are inaccurate against the Borsig, having picked up a top gun with our 6 kills, our 6,000 damage dealt in this game, and we are in a 1 versus 1 scenario against a full health German turreted TD. So in this kind of a situation, the last thing that you want to do is to not pressure the Borsig. And the reason for that is he's very sneaky. If I allow a vehicle that's got about 30, if they're using a turbo, 35 km/h top speed to be able to get away from me and go and get themselves into a bush, I am not going to be in a good way. So I have to apply the pressure. I can't leave it in a scenario where the Borsig is allowed to establish their position, because once the Borsig's got there, I'm not going to know which bush they are in. But hopefully as well, I will get my gun back before we have to start blazing, as we're loading high explosive rounds now to try and get that extra alpha damage for 480, albeit with only 53 millimeters of pen, because I'm hoping that if I high roll, maybe I can get him with 2 shots, although that would be a test, or it should be a push to be able to roll that high to do 1,100 damage when you've only got 480 alpha. I'm very lucky that the Borsig low rolled there for 415. It means that with my 542 hit points, I've got about a 1 in 3 chance of being able to... Sorry, he's only got a 1 in 3 chance. I've got a 2 in 3 chance of surviving the next shell. And oh, this is just beautiful. The Borsig must have thought I was going through the center, and we put 493. So clearly I'm going to need another 2 shells to be able to finish off this Borsig. It's impossible for 480 to be able to roll that high, I believe. Yeah, a quarter of 480 would be 120, and then we add that on. So I can roll up for about 600 against the Borsig, but that's not going to quite do 607, unless of course I ram him as well. So can you believe that the vehicle that we must have only hit the tracks on earlier is now in this 1 versus 1 scenario against me here? If only I'd managed to do that extra damage, they would be a one-shot as well. But I guess, unless they high roll, we're both kind of a two-shot. So I wanted to keep the pressure up against the Borsig. I wanted to wait until I was no longer spotted, and I'm basically baiting the Borsig into thinking that I am still up there. I want him to kind of go around this area into the bushes. And so I trundle forwards, expecting the Borsig to be up on my left, where hopefully I'm going to be able to catch them. Now, bizarrely enough, my sixth sense actually goes off. So what kind of bushes could the Borsig be in? I don't think there's any way he managed to sneak back there. So I was expecting him to be in these bushes up here and maybe just caught a glimpse of me around the corner. So you see me aiming, expecting to find the Borsig. Just hoping that the combat will go my way. And I have to admit, it takes a lot to be able to get my heart going in World of Tanks these days. But yeah, my BPM was starting to reach not quite an uncomfortable level. I've been here in these kind of scenarios 100, if not 1,000 times, with those kind of tense endgame situations. But I have to admit, my heart was still going a little bit. So I came around the corner there very slowly to see if my sixth sense could go off, to be able to figure out if I could know where the Borsig was going to be. And then up in this situation, we managed to pull back and, oh dear, we don't penetrate the HE shell. And I just realized this was a big misplay by me. I shouldn't have fired an HE shell in this scenario. I should have fired armor-piercing rounds, because the lack of the pen there against the track of the Borsig means that he is still more than a 50-50 one-shot for my armor-piercing rounds, and so I'm going to have to try and hit an HE shell again. Big misplay by me. After the lack of the high roll from my first shot, I should have definitely then loaded armor-piercing rounds against the Borsig, because they would have been a guaranteed two-shot. Oh well, I'm just going to have to deal with that poor decision that I made, and now hopefully be able to get an HE shell in, which will pretty much guarantee take down the Borsig in this situation. Although an HE shell on this tank could roll as low as 360, as much as it could high roll up to 600. Yeah, World of Tanks RNG, right, boys and girls? Okay, so we're going to make our way over the ridge. There's the Borsig around here, and we actually managed to proxy spot them. Perfect situation, 10 degrees of gun depression and a turret against a vehicle that has decent amount of elevation, but maybe not. But interestingly enough, we have the mutant on our team says, man, don't be a coward. Just jump on him. Bruh, can you just sit down, shut up, and get carried in this scenario, mate? Okay, thanks. Thank you. That's how I felt at the situation. Maybe that's too real. And looking at my opportunity, I crest over the ridge and finish off the Borsig with an HE penetration. And oh my lord, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it was nice to be able to pick up a Kolobanov's medal here. Although at the time, I thought it was only a 1 versus 4 scenario. I didn't realize that some Su-130 PM on the enemy team must have drowned themselves in a river. And actually, we managed to find the culprit over here. I don't know what this was trying to do. Maybe they were trying to cross the river here, because, oh, if they've got a mark of excellence, they're probably not the worst of players. Sorry for the Polish flag there. Oh no, the comment section is now ruined. But this player probably knew that you're actually able to sneak your way up here if you vault up here, and then he was trying to get into a situation where they could have probably been able to finish me off. Luckily, it looks like they didn't quite realize how short their vehicle was, and they died trying to cross the river to be able to come down and shut down the QuickyBaby. So while this game wasn't a 1 versus 5 scenario, and the Kolobanov's medal was a little bit cheesed due to a little bit of luck, this was more about the holistic game. Every single moment of this game, I had decisions where if I didn't make the correct one, I would have most likely lost it. The decision at the beginning of the game to realize where the E75 was going, and that we might have lost the western flank, to then get the high ground, to then realize I need to get back, to secure the cap circle, to realize in this scenario that the focus clearly wasn't on the reloading Cobra, but on the very dangerous Kampfpanzer, and then the tense 1v1 against the Borsig at the end of the game. It's just these kind of decisions that you have to make throughout that you're not going to get immediately. But again, after you've been in these scenarios tens, hundreds, or thousands of times, you start to make them instinctively, and you avoid more of the pitfalls, to eventually allow you to go against double your hit points and 5 times your vehicles, albeit with a little bit of drowning, to still achieve the games of your dreams. So in addition to the Kolobanov's medal here, we managed to get a defender for our 100 base defense points, a steel wall medal for blocking 3,000 damage in this game, and a top gun for securing 7 kills. And as this vehicle does have premium status, we made 165,000 credits profit. Not bad. I went digging around on what replays, and in the last 3 patches, there was only 1 game in the STRV K that had a higher experience total. And if we order it by damage, this was the 3rd highest damage game in a STRV K, at least it's been uploaded over the last 3 versions. And so before all of you purchase this vehicle the next time it's sold in Wargaming Store, yeah, just keep that in mind, that this vehicle, it's not terrible, but it's kind of combining arguably the worst aspects of 2 vehicles. Nobody wants the hull of a Kranvang, everybody wants the turret. And does anyone really want the gun of a Centurion 7-1, arguably in a slightly cut down form on the hull of a Kranvang? Yeah, that's a little bit of a push. Nevertheless, I really hope you all enjoyed this video today and this game. If it did and managed to get your heart going as much as mine was during it, then make sure you give the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Sunday, later on today, there will be the first ever Italian heavy tank tech tree showcase. Not Italian heavy tank, Italian tank destroyer tech tree showcase. And so join me as I work my way up the entire tech tree so you can see what the fuss is about of all of the new Italian tank destroyers, where I give you tips and tricks as to how to play all of them. And then we're going to be culminating with my first ever gameplay in the Minotauro on the live server today. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing you all live right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.